The Fletch Cast. It's genetics.
Club members, welcome. We have a great guest today, Leonard Jackson of the No Half Stepping podcast. It is, you'll see why he's here, but let me give you some background because we started with, our producer said, you've got to meet Leonard Jackson's grandmother. She's this amazing person, multicultural and everything. And Sean said, well, talk to Leonard. And Leonard and I started talking, and 40 minutes into the conversation, because we're both brilliant, we said, wait a minute, maybe we should do this podcast first before we talk to Leonard's grandmother. So, Leonard, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. This is a true honor.
Walk us through kind of your background. What, as our listeners know, the Fletch Cast is about multiculturalism.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess as far as the society is concerned, I'm a black man. That's it. I'm just kidding. No.
That's it. Goodbye. Thank you.
I'm messing with you. Yeah. Thank you. See you next week.
Clunk.
Yeah. Drop the mic. No, I'm black, man. I mean, it seems like that's all I care about in this country.
But you're a club member. You're a multicultural club member.
So yeah, let me explain. So I'm a father of four. I'm married to a white Caucasian woman, whatever you want to call it.
Who you actually love still. So that's even more amazing.
After 22 years, man, I'm crazy about this woman.
That's amazing.
It's been a roller coaster. Anyone who's been married knows all about the roller coaster, Six Flags.
Mine was more just a drive off a cliff, but in theory,
there are no rails on that roller coaster. Just flew off the damn track. She's from the South, and so her family was like, "What the." Can I just tell you a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely.
When we first started dating, her brother was getting married that same year.
Did you guys meet in California?
We met in California, but we both used to live in Georgia. We had the reason why we had mutual friends in Georgia. We just never met. And my roommates here, when she graduated from college, she moved to LA to go to grad school, and she called her roommate. My roommate, which is a friend of mine, and he's like, "Hey, man, this is my friend Caroline, blah, blah, blah." And I thought she was pretty good looking. I didn't think much about it. But here's the thing. Her brother's getting married. And she's like, "Hey, I'm going to bring my boyfriend to the wedding." They're like, "Yeah, oh my God, bring him." Yes, exactly. Bring him. Oh my God, we can't wait to meet him. Oh, this is great. And she didn't think I have to tell him that he's black. I mean, that didn't even cross her mind.
Wow.
You know what I mean, though?
Wow.
Like, a part of you says, well, you should have said something. But another part of you says, wait, why put that warning label on? What's wrong with him being black?
Right.
So I get there, and I've never seen high blood pressure before in person. I saw high blood pressure in person, man.
The music stopped when you walked in.
Hey, man, I've never seen that before in person. You know what I mean? You've seen it in the movies.
Was it? It was really awkward, or did it just feel awkward?
Oh, no, man. She's like, "This is my boyfriend, Leonard." I'll never forget her dad. He was looking and he just dropped his head. And I think he lost all, sense of taste, smell, everything. Like his whole body.
It was pre-corona.
It was pre-corona, yeah. I was like, "Can you taste and smell? Because I don't know if this is nigger corona."
But what's great, though, is from Caroline's perspective, is she just perceived it as your relationship. So it's really kind of, you can't even be mad at her father because he raised a pretty cool kid.
He raised her. He raised her not to be that way. Yeah. And I guess he regretted the hell out of it then.
He said, "I fucked up."
He's like, "God, what was I thinking? No nigger loving. No nigger loving."
He said all that shit about equality. I didn't mean it. It was just for the...
Yeah, you didn't take it. You didn't have to take it so literal. I felt like hugging him and be like, "It's okay, man. I'm a nigger, but it's okay. I'm a nigger." So then right after that, her grandma, she's like, I stuck my hand out to shake her hand. She looked at me and just turned her head and walked away. I was like,
wow,
dang.
That's profound.
I was like, it's like that?
Wow.
But check this out, bro. What, 5 years? Because we live in LA, they live in the South, but it took like no time for them to just love. Her father and I are like best friends.
Wow. That's great, though.
he's like one of my favorite people on this planet. I think it's the feeling's mutual.
What's
Her
his
grandma,
background? What is his background? How does he come to that? Uh,
his
how does
parents, his parents. He talked to his parents. Was like, can you believe what Caroline did? And his parents were like, why are you tripping?
Wow.
And ever since they said that to him,
Wow.
It was never a thing anymore.
Wow.
It was never a thing.
That's amazing. That's great.
They're like, why are you
That's
tripping?
great. Yeah.
Like, what's your problem? This is a nice guy. He's funny, whatever. And
he's hilarious.
I bet he has a big one. Yeah, I don't think he liked that too much. But what was I gonna say? Oh, and the grandma. Guess what I found out? Just a few years later, I found out she ended up voting for Obama. Like, I was shocked. Like, dude, you gotta remember, her grandma grew up in Virginia, the Confederate capital, and she remembers all the segregation and all that. She was right there in the middle. I don't know if she was right there in the middle of it, but she grew up. She was in her 30s back then. And but yeah, man, her grandma she just passed away a couple years ago, and she really wanted to see me. She knew she was getting close to the end. I had to fly out there and spend time. Like, we became it's really amazing, man. That's why I tell you earlier, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on skin color and stuff like that, because it's not relevant, man. Because once you get to know somebody, you forget what color they are. You don't even think about that.
But your situation is unique. You ran into people who were not predisposed to be against you because of race. Because there are people. It's like we were talking when I remember when I moved to Long Beach and I saw two gay guys walking down the street and they're holding hands, and it brought tears to my eyes because one of my best friends was gay, and he's like, my parents hate me. And it was just fucked up. I mean, it was fucked up because you're gay. And so it's great that you have in-laws who are open-minded like that, but there are plenty of people.
But that's just it. They weren't open-minded.
Well, they're open-minded to the relationship, though. I mean, they listened to you, they learned from you, they got to know you, they didn't close the door. I
think.
Go ahead.
I think what happened is, I think a lot of people, and not everybody, but thinking people, reasonable people, they'll sit back and go, wait, why am I tripping? And I can't think of a reason why I should be tripping right now. And so, you have those people. Then you have other people.
What percentage of people do you think are in that first group? Because I think that first group is pretty fucking small.
Excellent question. I talked about this with my brother, actually, and we were talking about what percentage of this country is racist. That racist meaning they don't like someone based on what they look like. That's what we call
or their
racist.
religion, or just group that, you know what I mean? Because they'll find something.
It's prejudice.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody's prejudiced. Well, I don't care.
All right, but back to that percentage of people who are going to not like you for you're gay, you're African American, you're Asian. I think
it's 20%.
I think that's right. Roughly.
Yeah, I think it's roughly a little bit more, maybe a little bit more.
On the African American side, what's the percentage?
I think and this is just from my friends, family.
It's hard to say, isn't it?
I think the majority of Black people always put race first, put skin color first. I think the majority of them, because that's like the first thing they want to talk about all the time. My family, my friends at the barbershop. Recently, now back growing up, I was a teenager and stuff in the 80s and the 90s, and I don't remember that coming up so much. It's really weird how it's become a big thing now, but back then, I don't remember coming up that much, to be honest with you.
Do you think, though, what I'm more interested in is that percentage? Yes, race comes up, but what percentage of African Americans are racist towards other groups? It's a significant number.
I don't know if Black people are racist in terms of in terms of hate. Like, I don't like them because they're Asian, or I don't like them because they're white, or I don't like them. I don't think it's more of that. I think it's more of a I don't trust them, or they don't like me, or in America, Black people have like a I'm not going to say self-pity thing, but it seems like America's trying to make us have that. With the constant Black History Month, with the constant, Black lives, help Black people, Black people, Black people, Black. we're all not struggling, man, and we're all not like looking for handouts. We're all not trying to be charity cases. We want to, I have pride in the fact that I could start my own business and I could do this and I could do that.
But Leonard,
I don't want to feel like I'm handicapped because of my skin color. That pisses me off.
Let me ask you two questions. I want to go back to the racism element, because I remember when I saw Spike Lee's Jungle Fever, and again, I grew up interracial in LA. And so it was just normal to have multiculturalism. I remember walking out of Spike Lee's Jungle Fever going,
where the white women at?
No, I walked out going, if black people feel this way about white people and white people feel this way about black people, thank God I'm interracial. And so I think 30 to 35% of African Americans harbor what I would consider to be racist feelings, either a chunk of which is directed toward gay people, which is shocking. But I think that percentage is higher, and I think it's roughly I think it's about a third for African Americans and a third for Caucasians.
When you're saying black people are racist towards other races or just towards white people?
Well,
and what does that mean, being racist to you? What does that mean to you, being racist?
It's again, I apply the maybe it's the simplistic model, but when you don't like someone because of their race, when you think negatively about someone because of their race, I consider that racism, and it's don't you?
Well, yeah. You talking about a thought or an action?
Well, that's action obviously would be much worse, but the thought in and of itself is bad enough. But you know what I mean, though. There are plenty of African Americans harboring. I mean, if you look at the incidence of AIDS in the African American community, and it's stunning, the percentage of AIDS cases that are African American and Latino. That is a product of discrimination toward gay people. And so that's just a product, because if you're gay or bisexual in that community, you just can't be, you're going to be hounded. And so I think that, do you think African Americans are not a third of them discriminatory toward Caucasians or Latinos? In LA is a better example. I hear horrible shit, where you're like, don't you think?
I grew up in Carson.
I grew up in Linwood.
Okay, so you're not far from me.
You guys had money though, apparently, because we didn't.
Yeah, because we robbed people in Linwood.
I knew it. I knew I saw you before.
Yeah. I thought you looked familiar. I appreciate that tricycle, man. That thing got me. I got 5 years out of that thing.
You know, it's
go ahead.
I was just gonna say one of the funniest things, one of the interesting things that lots of people don't know. If you grow up and you're of color in California, your perception of the world is different. You and I had never talked, and we're instantly talking. It's weird because in California, brothers are, I think, at least a segment of us are coming to this premise thinking, oh, we're going to do it all. We're not afraid of that. We're not afraid of that. You've gone out, you've started an amazing business. Do you know what I mean? I remember when I went to Missouri and I met some brothers, and I was like, these people are different, just different. People of color on the West Coast and the East Coast, they perceive the world as, I'm going to go attack it. And when you go inland, I just saw a dramatic difference in perception, or I'm going to go get the work. You know what I mean?
What you're describing to me is exactly, I think it's accurate to unfortunately, a significant amount of people in this country. And it all based, see, I don't know how you grew up. When I grew up in LA, I lived in Georgia for a while, is what I'm getting at. We moved to Atlanta when I was 14, and immediately I saw that slavery was a big deal out there. Number one, people talk like they right here. What's your name is? That messed me up. And they said, you talk like you white. Why you talk like a white boy? And I'm like, dang, is it like that? Like, I speak the King's language. This is English.
But that's in L.A. You're raised in L.A. where your parents, people are like, wait, what, black? No, I'm just talking. This is how people talk. It's amazing what an advantage that gives us versus other brothers who think it's white. As my mother used to say, who's white, she'd say, technically it's Sanskrit, and that's Africa. So you're speaking African. I was like, okay, Mom, but everyone says I'm talking white. But you know what I mean? But it's and this is one of these things that differentiates.
let me just finish my point real quick. When I went to so I remember my brothers and I moved. It's 5 of us, but my sister stayed here. My brothers and I went to Georgia, and we had a neighbor named Petey, and we used to go to the mall together and stuff like that. So we were at the mall, and there was a Porsche that just sold. It was inside the mall, and it said sold. And Petey said, and my brothers and I, we laugh about this to this day. That was 30-something years ago, and he said, "Oh man, it's sold. I bet a white man bought that car. White man bought that." And we all looked at each other like,
right?
what is he talking about? White man? Why is he saying that? Like, so yeah, some people and they don't think they can have stuff like that.
But
they didn't think that was a thing for them.
But here's my point though, is your perception about what you can accomplish and who can do it, that's a product of your parents. Because I look at when I remember going to Missouri, and in our last podcast I was talking about the first time I heard the word nigger, and I was, whoa, wait a minute, that's different. I've also heard that you're talking white thing. I came into this world going, I can do anything. But you meet some of these brothers back south, and the mindset it's disturbing, because it's like, why do you
sad.
think it is? You know?
Well, it boils back down to what you and I touched on the other day. I'm a firm believer of this, and Mike and Sean, they've heard me talk about this over and over and over. But Black History Month has an adverse effect on these people in these communities. I'm telling you, when people think this is what I come from and this is pretty much what I'm all about, all these other great things is for the people that look like that. That's not a good starting place for these kids. And when they start teaching this stuff in kindergarten and first grade and second grade, they're starting out the gate on the wrong way behind the starting line. If you want to talk about slavery and all that, let's do it in junior high school, where they can process this information and really understand it and have context and understand what it all means. But when you're hitting kids at first, second grade, all they know is that, hey, I'm brown. People that look like me come from this. This is pretty much, the fact that I get to do anything with a white person is a privilege. And that's sick.
It is, and it is disturbing. And here's another thing about teaching slavery. The African-American experience with slavery was roughly 220 years. The Jewish experience with slavery was 5,000 years. And yet, when we learn about Jewish people in school, the first thing we learn isn't that they were slaves for 5,000 years. The first thing people learn about African-Americans were, you were slaves and you barely made it. And it does have that residual effect that it's like, wait a minute, but this is the other thing where you and I disagreed a little bit, where I said,
Ask your Jewish friends, by the way, if they want Jew History Month. Every single one of my Jewish friends said, hell no. But anyway, go ahead.
But it's a good point, though. And one thing I do consistently, I say, let's look at the Jewish model. The Jewish model is what, in my opinion, the multicultural community should follow, because when it's said and done, it's economics. And I'm in. It drives me crazy to see the examples that are being set for kids. That's what I was talking to you about, is you have a company, you do millions of dollars of business. It's important. I know that I came out better because my dad had a scrap iron company, which I like to say is a truck and 5 boys. But we worked every Saturday. And having that role model caused me to work harder and harder and harder. There are so many people of color who they literally they've never seen a person go to work. Think about that.
No, hold on. Back up a second. You said the key word. I don't think you noticed what you said. My dad.
Right. And again,
you could have stopped right there.
I agree, and there's groups of issues associated with that. But one way we could help more families have fathers is economics. It's just I did this research on recycling of a dollar within the community. It is Asian community 9 times a dollar recycles, Jewish community 6 times it recycles, African American community 0. It's fucking gone, but it's just gone.
Look how long they hold the money, too. 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. I'm not even trying to be funny.
I agree.
It's 8 seconds. The Jews and all these other cultures, they invest, they save. We get a big check, it's gone.
Well, and that's one of the points. One of the main reasons I did this podcast, I said, if we're going to get better, it has to be the multicultural community. It has to be, because we're the ones who actually get a chance to see it on a better per capita basis. And that's, if we could do that, there'll be more kids that can say, hey, shit, I got to get up and go to work.
Well,
Go ahead.
I know. Mike and Sean could probably go take a pee break because they heard me do this a million times. I got a 3-step plan. And my 3-step plan will fix a lot of these things we hear Black people cry about today. Number one, we kind of touched on it, was get rid of Black History Month. We kind of explained. I kind of hit all the points as to why that's an issue. We could go over that again, but I think for the listeners, they kind of got a good idea. It's kids start off with a behind the 8 ball. The second one is programs. We need to have programs in the schools, not after school programs. We need to have programs in the schools for these at-risk kids that have, grades that are struggling, behavioral issues. And you know what that means? A lot of time it means that they lack what? Good parenting, a father in the home, what have you.
Or a home period.
Or a home period,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So what that's going to do, that might stop that cycle that we keep seeing happen over and over and over. Teen pregnancy, daddy going to jail. Right. That's going to probably help stop it because these kids have a good chance going to college and being around other successful kids and want to do well for themselves, so on and so forth. And the third thing was more geared towards the whole police brutality thing. So, I mean, I don't really need to mention that, but I will since people are, probably wondering what it is. That's just basically throwing a book at these cops that do stupid ass stuff like the George Floyd cop. You got to throw the book at these guys hard and heavy so that makes guys think twice about doing that down the road.
And I'm in agreement with almost all of that. But part of my approach is that if we don't take control of it economically, we are the ones that have to take control of it. It has to be industry controlled by multicultural people. We have to reinforce that.
But if you just throw money at these kids that don't have a dad in the home,
I'm not talking about throwing money at them. I'm talking about giving them an example, letting them see. But the deterioration of the nuclear family has almost exclusively to do with economics. It's our inability. A white kid can get out of prison and get a job making $14 an hour because there are companies that are hiring them. If we take control, if the multicultural community says, wait a minute, we're going to do what the Jewish community does. We're going to do what the Asian community does, and we're going to reinforce and create economic opportunities. That's how you address those other issues. It's amazing. Again, back to the number of kids who've never seen a grown-up in their family go to work. It's fucking stunning.
That's where the problem is. Look, I'm going to just tell you what we're doing. My brother, Mike and Sean met him. He's an executive at Microsoft. He does very well for himself. And my neighbor, his name is Stacy. He's an executive banker. He does very well. But what we did, we're putting together a group that focuses on going to these, as Trump calls them, opportunity zones, areas where we have just depressed communities that need a hand. And we're going to go target these businesses and help these businesses prosper and try to turn these communities around that way, empowering minority-owned businesses, the people that live in these communities, instead of having these people come into these communities taking the money out.
But there are so few minority-owned businesses, and that, to me, the issue really is it's businesses. I always say this: there's no shortage of jobs in the ghetto. There's a shortage of Black-owned jobs in the ghetto and Latino-owned jobs in the ghetto. We can't fix the African American issues or the Latino issues, but we can fix the multicultural issues. We can say, hey, Leonard, you have this great company. I've got a nephew I want to send over and talk to you. And we can do all the things that take care of our community because that's what we have to. If we don't, we're going to be in the same places as the African American community right now. I don't want to be there.
But we can't skip over the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is fixing the home. You got to start with these kids. We can't.
But how do you fix it? The best way to fix it is have them see. I never forget. I never met my biological father.
My number 2 is how you do it. But go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that the most profound memory I have of my stepfather was he had hurt his back at work, and it was the next day, and we're all sitting at the table eating cereal, and my dad opens the door, and he creaks walking by, and everyone looks. And my mother says, where are you going? He says, to work, and kept walking out. And it's that profound seeing that's what adults do. That's how you fix that. And you go back to, if we focus on hiring club members, interracial people who are part of our communities, we then fix that at least with respect to our community.
But you're assuming these people want to work.
Oh, I think everyone wants to work, dude. Don't you?
No. Well, hold on. Do they? Is that why we see
Well,
people selling crack and going to
yeah,
jail and shooting each other
yeah,
and
but
stuff like that?
well, but we don't know what their background is.
We,
I had a foster kid, and it's he never had a fucking chance. He was in 13 and couldn't read, and it's amazing.
our program will fix that.
Well, but to get to your program, I think the more efficient way to do that is to offer economic opportunities, which is jobs. Government programs to help homes and shit like they don't work. Empower business. Go to Leonard Jackson and say, "Can I give you a loan to make your business bigger?" That's how you. Because then what you're doing is you're giving money to someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about. You look at Black African American elected officials. The number of them who have ever ran a fucking business is zero. We should
That's
go
most politicians.
Oh, I agree. But in our community or in communities of color, it's more devastating. What we have to do is go to people like you and say, how can we make you grow this business? Let's stop investing money in community organization shit. Let's invest it in people who know how to run a business.
You grew up in Linwood.
I did.
I grew up in Carson. I don't remember a whole lot of people saying, "Man, I can't get a job anywhere. I'm going everywhere. Nobody wants to hire me." No, they're like, "I got some crack. I'm gonna sell this crack. Get me a pickup truck with some deep dish wheels and some speakers in the back."
See, but
I don't remember a whole lot of people
I don't
talking
think
about.
that's correct. I mean, I grew up in the hood.
How many of those kids went to college and were trying to be successful?
Well, but if you think about it, 30% of the population as a whole has a college degree. So it's under that. But I do know this. I know several that did. I also know several that didn't have a fucking chance. And so there are issues.
Why didn't they have a chance?
Oh, because they had dysfunctional homes. They had, parents who aren't. But you can't punish the kid for that. I mean, if we're
No.
but that's what ends up happening. And so I look at this.
But
Go ahead.
I got to say this though. Yes,
like,
these
"Fuck
kids
you."
don't have a chance. No. You're right. These kids don't have a chance. You're absolutely right. And the only way for them to have a chance is for them to have. If it's not my program idea, we need something that's going to take place of these shitty parents, man, that are not raising these kids right, and then you can hire them. But if you're not going to be able to hire that kid that doesn't have a chance, that doesn't have good upbringing, they're not going to be hireable, is what I'm getting at.
And I agree, and that's the issue. The program that you're pointing to, that's we've done that. Trying to teach 17-year-old mothers how to raise kids who are responsible and going to school, that's really difficult. What I'm saying. Well, that when you look at single parent households in the inner city, they are single parent households with a young mother, no father. You can't fix that with a program. You can fix it with a job. And the people who are going to be able to give jobs, in my opinion, are people from the community. And what I'm saying is, as a multicultural person, is we're going to end up in this African American scenario, or we can be in the interracial scenario. And my point is, I want to be in the interracial scenario because we can control it. We can do something because we don't want to be over here.
Let me clarify my program first, because I think, I don't want to. I got cousins that they get welfare because all the babies they have. That needs to be fixed, first of all. We got a lot of policy changes we need to make. These people aren't itching to get a job. I'm telling you. I know it's for a fact. But let me just go back to my program. My program is not going to necessarily fix the pregnant mom and show her how to raise the kid. We're basically saying with this program, which, and by the way, the only reason why I even know that this exists already. This is a white female that told me about this, by the way. She went to one of these.
Well, it's not true then.
I think her school.
Forget it.
No, I think the majority of her school was minorities, but she just happened to be in the school. This school had a program where if your grades are not so great and you had behavioral issues, you had to be part of this program. And this program basically had teachers that took the place of your parents, basically, and set you on the right path. She ended up going to college, getting a great job, and doing well. But she said, "There's no way I would have done what I've done if it wasn't for this." And so what I'm saying is, yeah, we're not going to probably fix the parents. I don't want to say they're just they're too far gone. I don't want to say that, but this program would be geared towards stopping the cycle.
But who's going to be able to stop that better? A group of. My point is that the interracial community, the multicultural community, if we look and see and we say, This is why we have to do business together. This is why we have to follow the Jewish model, the Asian model. We have to do that so we can afford these kids opportunities. It's unfortunate if certain kids can't be part of that. But the issue really is, are we going to get on this boat and help our community? Or are we going to go over here and flounder trying to teach, 17-year-old girls have 3 kids how to raise better children? It's unfortunate. It is. But the reality is, the programs you're talking about, they don't work because they can't.
I haven't seen them. implemented on a mass scale.
See, I would rather say, go to you and say, you are a businessman. You know how to run a business. The best thing you can do for a family is to hire other people so they can understand that. And investing money in a bunch of community shit where it's like, you can't replace getting up and going to work.
But you can't hire unhireable people. It's gonna.
Oh, I agree.
It's not gonna work.
I agree.
You have to fix the home or the environment or the upbringing so you can make these people look. I work with you all day long. You're a smart guy. You're educated and all that. You had a dad. You had a pretty good upbringing. So yeah, we could work. This goes back to your other thing. I don't care what color. I don't care what color you are. And yeah, I see what you're saying with the Jews giving back, helping each other, and the Asians. I get that, and I can't say anything negative about that. I mean, it works for them; it's great. But there's a lot of people that I know in business, I'm sure you know as well, that aren't necessarily doing really well because they stuck with their kind. They're doing really well because they made some pretty smart decisions and.
Well, that's true.
Good investments and so on and so forth.
But that's true. But if you're opposed to multicultural entities and individuals working together, then why would we be the only ones out here? Everyone else.
I'm not opposed to it.
Well, but I'm saying is that we have to make it a focus, because if we don't, then we lose the economic multiplier effect of doing business within our community. It's cold-hearted at some level, but it's what we have to do. Chinese, Asians do it, Jewish people do it, Catholics do it. We have to do it. We can't be the only group not doing it.
If you have a situation where you're looking for vendors for your business, people to hire, people for you to give money to for doing a service for your company, you're going to, number one, sounds like you're not going to, number one, look for the best supplier. You're going to look for someone that's multicultural first.
My experience is multicultural people end up being the best.
Okay. That's fair. That's fine. I'm not going to debate that. But for most businesses, their bottom line is the most important thing because they want to make money. That's why they're in business. And that's
hiring the best employee. If it's a multicultural person that is the bottom line, is the best.
But if you have what you're saying is if you have a white person and a multicultural person, and the white person has better Yelp reviews, better prices, better everything, you're still going to hire the multicultural one to help that community, I guess.
Well, my experience has been the Caucasian person probably wouldn't have better Yelp reviews, but it's my decisions also based upon my history. I can look at a young multicultural person and know that person, first of all, has been in an environment that says, hey, let's go succeed. Let's go. Don't let anyone tell you can't do anything. I know as a multicultural person, when I meet another multicultural person, that kid, that interracial kid, man, they probably have some pretty good background. And that background says, go do it, go succeed. That's my experience. Here's a good example. Look at your kids. Aren't they fucking great? I mean,
my kids ain't messing around.
Right, but here's the crazy thing, Leonard.
It's all me though. That's all me.
Well, it's and your wife who's great.
My wife.
That's our whole point. We had last week. We had Zach Miller on. He's Jewish. His wife is.
Yeah, I know Zach. Yeah.
And I pointed out. I said, you have all these things going on, and yet you have this amazing fucking family with these 2 great kids. It's that multicultural experience that we get a pull from and say, we expect you to do better, and we're going to give you an opportunity. That's what I'm pointing to. And
let's define.
Yes, I'm going to discriminate against white people. Yes, that's what I'm going to do.
There's a lot of people listening right now that are wondering, what in the hell is multicultural? Can you explain what multicultural means? Because my wife could be considered multicultural. Her father's side's all from Eastern Europe. Her mom's side's all from Great Britain, but her dad's side, they have olive skin, dark hair. So what's multicultural?
Multicultural, and this is a perfect example, as I always point out. You mean like Steve Jobs, who's half Syrian, half European. Multicultural.
Is he multicultural?
Yeah, he's his father's Syrian. He's African. I mean, it's unbelievable. Multicultural is what way we define it is it's a commonality of life experiences based upon broad outlines. So, for example, the mother of my child is Italian. I'm interracial, and so multicultural is.
And wait, you're interracial. What does that mean? What does that mean?
My father's African American and my mother's Caucasian. And so,
okay.
But what we really are working on this show is talking about that it's more than that. It's Asian, it's Hispanic, it's all of these things. But the issue is, do you have a commonality of experience with having a mate or a husband or a wife who's of a different ethnicity? Because by that fact alone, it's almost impossible. If you're married to an Asian woman and you have two Hapas, the likelihood that you're going to think negatively and shitty about Asians it's lower by genetics. Genetically, it is lower. And by multiculturalism at work, what we tend to do, and this is one thing that you've done, is you tend to just look at a motherfucker and say, all right, what are you saying? I hear these facts, this, and this. And it gets you to a point where you're making decisions based upon competence, based upon ability versus, I don't know if I like him because he's black. It's amazing. Multiculturalism uses race as a positive uniting force versus other people using it as I think, a negative tool.
You know what I've noticed, man? And maybe it's just me. I don't think it is, but maybe it's just me. But when I've run into someone that I've never met before, the first thing I notice is how are they dressed? How's his hair? How's his teeth? What kind of shoes? You know, because if you walk up to me and you got a hoodie, you sagging, and you got gauges in your ears, and you got a teardrop, I'm gonna look at you differently than a guy with
as
a nice
should.
blazer. Yeah, so I'm looking at more.
But you know, Leonard, what you didn't say
than skin color.
You didn't even look at skin color. But you're a product of a multicultural environment. You're right. You looked at everything else except for what? Skin color. Being a product of a multicultural environment, you're looking at groups of other things that are far more better indicators of success, right?
Yeah, maybe I'm an outlier, man. I teach my kids the same way. You know, just check out who you're dealing with, not what you think you're dealing with.
But,
you know,
but
because
how many people who are not in a multicultural environment don't do that?
I'm gonna be honest with you. The last 20 years, up until the last 5-6 years, dude, you probably remember. You remember NWA, "Fuck the Police." You know all those songs.
Yeah.
I remember riding around in high school with a bunch of friends who were Hispanic and Jewish and white. We used to sing every single lyric. We didn't hum the N-word. We sang that too. We didn't think about all this stuff. It's gotten. Look, I think the environment right now has gotten so.
But let me think about this by definition. What you just said is, again, it exemplifies the power of multiculturalism. We're driving around in a car with a bunch of multicultural people who like and respect each other, and so we can say this ER word, and it doesn't mean shit. You know why? Because you all have a common experience, and that brings you together. That's the power of multiculturalism.
That common experience is what? That he's hanging out with a black guy.
Well, it's a respect.
I'm hanging out with
and Carson is a great city too.
I apologize. This what I'm describing was in Atlanta because I had already moved out there.
Atlanta's a little different because Atlanta's amazing, but it's still. And what you get in, we got about 2 minutes left, Leonard. But what you get in Atlanta is you get a level of success. You know, Colin Cowherd, the ESPN person, talks about the success of quarterbacks, and he says it's not race, it's 2-parent households, and it's fucking riveting. It's riveting because that really is a tremendous benefit. When you're in Atlanta, you're seeing more 2-parent households. You're seeing greater diversity. It comes back to this premise of multiculturalism, using race as a uniting factor versus one of saying, I don't like you. It's as you just gave the perfect example. No one worried about it.
How about not give a damn about race, period? How about that?
Well, that's only if the rest of the world is going to stop.
Would that be nice though? Yeah, okay.
But it's not going to happen though.
Well, hold on.
Human beings have for history grouped themselves. So we can't be the one group.
They group themselves on tribes, on religion, and I hear what you're saying. But would it be more of a better effort to work towards not having race be an issue at all? Or would it make more sense to make race an issue and try to make people notice that everybody's different racially, but try to learn how to work together, or just stop putting such an emphasis on it altogether and let people work together based on what they're bringing to the table.
Well, I mean, to me, again, there's going to be divisions based upon groupings, but
let's make them the minority. Let's make them the minority.
That's my point, which is multiculturalism is it. Why get off this winning game? If you look at evolution, this is the great thing about evolution. Biological evolution, with more inputs, it ends with a higher quality of a life form. We win biologically based upon multiculturalism. That's a motherfucker. Let's go with that one.
I agree. Diversity, you can't beat it.
Right.
You can't beat it. It's the best thing. It's the best way to run a country, best way to run a business. 100%.
I say this every week. Genghis Khan, he conquered more than anyone in the world, and his armies were 100% multicultural. If you were part of Genghis Khan's army, you got to equally participate. You got proportional rights, and they controlled the whole fucking world.
Well, let me wrap it up with this then. If you're the president, or if you're a CEO, you're bringing in folks. Are you discriminating or you're not discriminating? And I think the difference is when you want to see more black people or more people of color, whatever you want to call it, in that organization, you have to have those people come apply, right? They have to apply. Right. And they're not going to apply if they are growing up in communities where they don't have a chance.
Right.
And we need to give them a chance. So you start seeing more of those people apply. You know, you can't just say, oh, we need to hire more black people. We need more black people to be hireable. So you got to keep that in mind too.
We should focus on hiring more multicultural people. We'll solve our problem. Because the reality is that we can either solve our problem or someone else can. I think we should solve our problem. And, that's what
just look at the IT world. Look at the IT world.
Right. It's a great example.
Okay.
It's a great example.
They're not, I don't have to say anymore. It's about people who are coming to these jobs. Who's applying? We don't have enough of us or multicultural people, I guess, applying because we need to get them to that point. And that's where I think.
Well, we will, but because you have 4 kids coming, I got 2 kids coming. but it's true. Look at here's what we'll stop with this. I was driving down the street and I had my daughter in back. She's half, she's interracial. Her friend next to her is half Jewish, half Catholic, and her friend next to her is half Mexican, half white. And they were talking about getting into Stanford. And I'm driving, just fucking giggling, going, in Linwood, I wasn't worried about Stanford. I was worried about, Bobos or something. It's that multicultural environment, and that's what our kids are doing. By the way, Leonard has a grandmother that we're going to get on the show that I can't wait to talk to. But by the way, you can see that she was part of your life because look at what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, man. That means a lot.
It's true.
You got me right here. You got me right here.
We're going to have you back.
All right, man.
All right, my brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you.
The Fletch Cast. It's genetics. The Fletch Cast is produced by the Laugh Bureau in association with young club member Mark Samuel Media.